exciting program of the City Club of Portland. I would like to extend a special welcome to our radio audience and the guests of club members in our audience today. We have a few announcements. First of all, next Friday, October 5th, we will have another single chair debate. This time, Secretary of State Barbara Roberts, Democratic candidate for governor, will be with us. As you remember, City Club policy states that if one candidate declines our invitation, the other will appear unopposed. Attorney General Dave Frohnmeyer declined our invitation. Advance registrations are printed in our bulletin. Please fill them out and get them in early for your reservation. Also, remember that this event is at the Hilton Hotel in their grand ballroom. 2 weeks from today, Friday, October 12th, we'll have Mayred Corrigan McGuire, one of two women to receive the Nobel Prize for Peace in 1977. She'll talk about her work to advance peace and justice in Northern Ireland. For this program, we will be at U.S. Bank Corp., the 41st floor. And I'd like to let you know that this program is being co-sponsored with the Oregon Catholic Conference. Another announcement is that City Club is offering an especially designed course for City Club members. This course focuses on leadership training. It's based on Stephen Covey's principle-centered approach to leadership. Some of you may be familiar with this, as you may have seen the book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. City Club members who are currently serving on standing committees and administrative committees have been given the opportunity to sign up for the course. We sent some brochures to these folks the first part of the week. Registration now stands at 10, and enrollment is limited to 20 people. This workshop will be 1 full day and 4 half days, beginning October 25th and ending December 13th. Course information and registrations materials will be mailed to members who request it. If you're interested, give the office a call and we'll send them to you. Following our program today, you are invited to walk through the Convention Center on a self-guided tour. There are Convention Center guides who are strategically placed to answer your questions. We know you'll enjoy your tour. As we start today's program, I need to thank a few people. First of all, there's our former president, Phil Bogue, and member of the TriMet board, and also Doug Capps, executive director of the Public Service Division for TriMet, for arranging for our free passes on MAC. That was really a special treat. I'd also like to thank Trudy Tolliver of TriMet staff. She's the community relations coordinator who helped us with our arrangements. I think often our staff doesn't get a note of appreciation. And I'd like to take a moment and say thank you to Nancy Hadeen and her staff for all the minute details they had to deal with to get this organized and coordinated so well. I'd like for them to stand and let's give them a round of applause. Thank you, gang. Our board host today is Pamela Lesh, first vice president of the club and general manager for regulatory affairs for Portland General Electric Company. She will have the privilege of asking the first question. She's seated in the audience today. Eric Fishman, member of the Arts and Culture Standing Committee, will ask the second question. I need to take a moment of your time today. Sometimes City Club's position on ballot measures can be represented in print and on television during the campaign season. So I want to give you some information to help you discriminate between accurate information and misinformation. Our Constitution states that the opinion of the membership on civic issues is the only opinion that may be expressed. In other words, no matter what a published report states, it is the vote of the membership that becomes the official position of the club. So if you see an ad that does not state that the membership voted and recommends a yes or a no vote on such and such a ballot measure, you're not getting accurate information. One other distinguishing feature for you is that club policy dictates that the only people who may speak for the club are designated by the president and approved by the board. So listen carefully. Does this person state they have been designated by the president and the board? If not, they're stating their own viewpoints, and they do have a right to express that viewpoint. It's been said and repeated often, the price we pay for freedom is eternal vigilance. In today's world of political rhetoric, we City Club members must also be vigilant. Now for today's program. Our convention center, a pledge, a hope, a dream come true, built on regional cooperation, much like City Club's vision of Willamette County. 6 years ago, Mayor-elect Bud Clark pledged support for such a center. A year later, local governments pulled together and formed the Committee on Regional Convention, Trade, and Spectator Facilities. Their report to Metro said, let's do it. Voters approved a $65 million bond. The legislature appropriated another $15 million. Downtown and Lloyd Center businesses imposed a special assessment tax on themselves for another $5 million. The building began, and here we are today. We have a regional planning success story on our hands, and this building was full of civic pride over the weekend. Today we're going to hear from folks who can tell us about the future. What role does the Convention Center play in the economic development of the region and in Portland's East Side? First, we'll hear from Patrick LaCrosse, Executive Director of the Portland Development Commission. He's held that position since 1981 and has been in planning and development for over 20 years. Next, we'll hear from Larry Troyer, General Manager of Lloyd Center Shopping Center. He has a long history of management positions for retailers and shopping centers. Our last speaker will be Sam Brooks, Executive Director of the Oregon Association of Minority Entrepreneurs. Mr. Brooks serves on the Merck Commission and also is chair of the Business Growth and Development Committee for the Northeast Portland Economic Development Task Force. Please join me in welcoming our speakers.
Thank you, Mary, and members of the City Club. It's a great pleasure to be here this afternoon for a couple of reasons. First of all, it's Friday afternoon. It's a beautiful sunny afternoon, and we're in this beautiful building, which is marvelous by any standards that you would use. It's a pleasure to tour it. My purpose here in a very few minutes, in the 7 or 8 minutes I'm going to take, is to kind of give an overview. First, to introduce you to the East Side. Secondly, to outline a bit of the Development Commission and the city's history with respect to the East Side. And finally, hopefully, to set the stage for my colleagues, Larry and Sam. Let me ask, first of all, how many of you here, with a show of hands, either live or work on the East Side? Very good. The first thing I'd like you to do is reach across the table to those West Siders and welcome them to the East Side. There's a few things they should know, and maybe you could help them. If they have a chance to tour the East Side, and if they go southeast or east, northeast, there's a characteristic they'll see that's kind of unique right off the bat, and that is that it's flat. Secondly, as you drive down streets in the east side, they will see something they're not used to, and you'll need to point it out to them. They're called sidewalks. And finally, another unique characteristic of East Siders is that in winter, when it snows, most of us actually still get to work on time. My purpose here, as I said, is to cover in a few minutes the history leading up to the convention center and today, to talk a bit about the pieces and the partners that are involved in trying to make the vision that's been sketched out work, and finally to kind of hit the key issue that we think is the payoff, and that's jobs for Portlanders. Many people, maybe most of you here, identify the Development Commission with downtown. And certainly that's justified since we've been working in downtown on various projects for over 30 years. But most people don't know that we have been involved in the East Side in one program or another for almost as long. We have operated a single-family housing renovation rehabilitation program in the city in one neighborhood or another, principally on the East Side, since the mid-60s. And the majority of the over 11,000 loans we've made in these 25 years have been in the East Side and Northeast. Moving up to the 1980s, in the early 80s, the city initiated first the Central East Side Industrial District Urban Renewal Program, and that's that area from the Banfield South to Division and over to 12th. And the purpose of that project, that urban renewal project, which has been underway several years now, is to bring about traffic and transportation improvements and to provide funds for the rehabilitation and fixing up of principally industrial buildings, and also more recently to assist the Oregon Museum of Science and Industry in developing in that area. Again, that area holds 17,000 jobs today, and our goal is to not only maintain those jobs, but to bring new jobs to that near-in industrial area. Then later in the 80s, the Airport Way Urban Renewal District, a 3,000-acre urban renewal district east of Portland International Airport, was initiated. The purpose of that project, again over time through public improvements and land assemblage and loans, is to generate, in our estimate, when it's fully developed, another 20,000 jobs for Portlanders. So our history, the PDC and the city's history with the East Side, is long and it's extensive. But lately, when people think of the East Side, their thoughts are drawn to the convention center, this magnificent building we're in today. It is not only a great building, but the civic process to get here was certainly one of the best I've seen and been involved with in the 20 years that I've been in this city. And already this center is a great success. There's almost 60 conventions that have already been booked for the next few years that involve 280,000 delegates and over $1.5 million in direct economic impact. I think the fact that's most important to me, though, and to you is these bookings are 25 to 50% ahead of schedule, ahead of the schedule and the projections that were made at the time the voters approved the ballot measure. So it really, truly is a success. In thinking about this, however, we should not forget that the successful process of the last 6 years leading to this center, which was led by Bob Ridgely and the Facilities Task Force, was preceded by at least 10 years of effort in which Bob and many others here wrestled with convention center sites, designs, and financing methods. But the convention center is just one piece, and it takes many, many more pieces to lead to the revitalization, the renovation, and the vision that Portlanders have for the convention center area and Northeast Portland. It took 20 years to build the building we're in today, and it will take at least as long to build this area, this neighborhood. From my perspective, the Development Commission's perspective, that vision is best expressed in a document called the Convention Center Area Development Strategy, which was done by Larry Dully and Chris Kopka and staff at the Development Commission on contract to Metro 3 years ago. That document, along with the urban renewal plan for this convention center area, describe a broad vision and provide a schedule and a method for undertaking public improvements and other assistances to private industry to develop in this area. These documents were the subject of at least over 100 public meetings and hearings over a 2-year period. And they call, as I said, for a broad private and public improvement strategy. I don't know how many of you may have seen this drawing up here, and certainly you can't see it very well from where you're sitting. If you have a chance to look at it later, it may be instructive. But it's kind of an idealized vision, an idealized picture of what the future holds for this area. It shows the convention center at the center. It shows a new headquarters hotel. It shows retail, many new office buildings, housing, and lots of other private investment. It shows broad street and public parkways, parks, and other kinds of amenities that will really fill out the area and make it a high-quality, excellent area. The two biggest private partners are Pacific Development Company, owner of at least 70 blocks of property in the area, and the Melvin Simon Company, owner of the Lloyd Center, both of whom are well on the way to this vision. The Simon Company with the about to be completed Lloyd Center renovation to the tune of $150 million plus, and PDI, Pacific Development, with their hotel development, the Carousel, the State Office Building, which is under construction, and many other renovations of older buildings in the area, and many more projects to come. So that describes a bit of the history and the fact that it's going to take some time. There's a lot of players involved in this effort. But the biggest payoff for the community, I believe, is jobs. For our part, the Development Commission has started a JobNet program in concert with other partners, including the Northeast Employment Center, the Portland Community College, Urban League, and many others. The purpose of that JobNet is to organize the jobs that are coming to Portland in many sectors and focus them on Northeast residents. The City Council and PDC have adopted policies that require public jobs and publicly assisted private jobs to focus on Northeast residents also. We have already started to see dramatic results from this. In the first 4 months of organization and operation, the JobNet has placed 350 positions, 52% of which are minority, and almost 80% of which are city residents. So I think that portends well for the future. In the long run, we can see many thousands of jobs, mostly from the private sector, that will come from the full development of this area and surrounding areas. And these jobs can be focused and will be focused on the residents of Portland that need them most. But this will only come about if the private sector, the public sector, and all of the partners involved in this effort work in unity and work together to accomplish this goal. Thank you.
A little tight up here on the platform, so we have to kind of maneuver. Good afternoon. I'm really pleased to have an opportunity to finally get into the building and have an opportunity to talk a little bit about our part of this magnificent project and what's the wonderful things that are happening in Northeast Portland. Kind of interesting, back in November of 1986, I came to Portland for a visit because my boss said that we were buying some property out here. And I grew up in Northeast Portland, and Portland, I had asked him at the time I went to work for Melvin Simon's, that if they ever did a shopping center in the Northwest, particularly Oregon, I would like to return. And fortunately for me, he remembered that. And when they started negotiations for Lloyd Center, he asked me to come out and do that. I think it was the second day I was in town, our attorney, Mark Dobson, said to me, "Hey, I want to take you to a luncheon." So he dragged me to City Club to hear all about the new Central City plan. And I didn't really realize at that time how much that would change my life in the next 3 years. But I'm very pleased that he did, and it gave me a great chance to get a lot of initial insight of the things that were happening in the area. So I'm pleased to be back today. I thought first I ought to maybe tell a little bit about Melvin Simons. I think that's one of the first questions I get anywhere I talk is, who is Melvin Simons and why are they in Portland and so forth. Melvin Simon is a company that was formed in 1960 in Indianapolis, Indiana, by three brothers, one who is presently retired, and Melvin Simon, who is now chairman, and Herb Simon, who is president. It's privately held. Our headquarters in Indianapolis employ about 1,000 workers. We have about 5,000 workers throughout 35 states and 200 projects, from urban renewal projects to regional malls to community centers. We presently are working on such projects as A&S Plaza in New York City, the Denver Tech Center in Denver, Fashion Center at Pentagon City, Arlington, Virginia, the Forum Shops at Caesars in Las Vegas, the Hollywood Promenade in Hollywood, California, Lincoln Town Center in Lincolnwood, Illinois, Mall of America in Bloomington, Minnesota, the Scottsdale Galleria in Scottsdale, Arizona, and of course Lloyd Center. And as I say, this is very important to me because it gave me the opportunity for my wife and I to return to Portland after 20 years. Lloyd Center also was very important to me because back when I was here before with Meyer and Frank, I was an assistant manager in Salem, and at times they had loaned me out to work on the Lloyd Center Meyer and Frank store and the completion of it. So I was very familiar with the Lloyd family and the Lloyd properties and the center itself. So to come back to be able to be a part of that was important. Also, I got to meet the Lloyd family a little bit and the heirs of Ralph Lloyd and what a wonderful vision he had for Northeast Portland. And all of a sudden, after our Central City meeting and talking about the center and making the actual purchase from the Lloyd family, we started to realize that Ralph Lloyd's dream can come true, and it's going to come true pretty quickly. So we recognized that we not only were going to want to remodel a center and develop it, we really now felt there was a total need to develop the area. And we looked at it not just as a remodeling of our own project, but to work closely with the city, with other surrounding businesses, with the neighborhood groups, to find out exactly what was going on in the area, what people expected, what they wanted, and what would happen, and especially with the new convention center and the new East Side Light Rail. There were just great opportunities. We felt that this was one of the real prime areas in the country where it was unique, almost in the heart of a downtown community, with 150 blocks of probably 60% undeveloped area. So we think there was a great opportunity, but we recognized that it was necessary that we look far beyond our own project. We found great partners. I'm very excited to work with them. We spent the next 16 months analyzing our own needs for the center and what the community expected from us as a new developer and a new player on the block. We did this through focus groups, working with neighborhood associations, got a lot of surveys, public opinion polls, and so forth, and we proceeded to redesign the center. Initially, we talked about that we would enclose the center, and one of the first things I did, remember talking to the Irvington group, I mentioned that and I got a resounding, no, we don't like the center enclosed, we want the center open. We like the air, and we like the flowers, and we like the trees, and the birds, and so forth. And I said, well, we appreciate knowing that. We'll look at it and see what we can do. And I've talked to them several times since then, and I've kind of given them an update and said, we went back and redesigned the center. We went back and we decided, let's put a glass roof on it. And I keep reminding them, people every time somebody tells me this, because I haven't convinced all of them yet that an enclosed center is going to be very nice. But I keep reminding them that when the east wind blows down through Lloyd Center in January, I get awful lonesome over there. And I think we have to be pretty competitive with the other malls in the area the other 12 months of the year. So I think we've come up with a solution that resolves that difficult problem for them, because I think we can still have our flowers and trees and yes, even birds. I managed the center in St. Louis Center, and I think we had in the neighborhood of 100 birds that flew and lived within the center itself. The only problem is they enjoyed the food court too much, and sometimes that was a little difficult. In our surveys, we basically came up with 3 things that we felt that were important to the neighborhood, to the area, and what was expected from us. I think the ice rink probably was one of the most critical things. Everybody told us, you know, what's going to happen to the ice rink? So, and initially we said, well, maybe we ought to put a food court in the center of the ice rink. After all, not many people skate. But we were wrong. We found out that a lot of people skate, and a lot of people enjoyed watching the skaters. So I'm happy to say that our ice rink will be the focal point. We'll be opening next February, and will be the focal point of the center court. We really have designed our whole center court as an entertainment center, so that we can have activities and things going on and use the ice rink for other events as well as skating. Above that, we are locating a food court of 14 vendors. We'll have common seating for the area for about 900 seats. We'll sit above the ice rink and be able to look down over the ice and watch the skaters and the activities. That was one of the things that came out in the survey to us, that the ice rink, people wanted to have a place to sit and watch people rather than have to lean on the rail and stand on the rail. And so we're going to be able to provide that. We're also supplying 8 new theaters on the north end directly behind the food court, because the Lloyd Centers have been such a success, and with 10 existing cinemas and another 8 within the center itself, there ought to be an opportunity to see every movie that comes out with 18 cinemas. The other issue in talking to the neighborhood group particularly, a lot of them we found moved to the area because of the doctors and because of the hospital locations. And people liked having doctors' offices in a shopping center. We hadn't seen a lot of this in the past in other parts of the country, but found that to be very important to them. And after all, they're our customers and we don't want to offend them. So we redesigned the center and actually are putting 200,000 feet of retail shops on what we call the Multnomah level, or the lower level of the center, which in the past had all been parking. We built 2 brand new parking garages, one on the northwest corner at 9th and Halsey, and the other one on 15th and Multnomah, to house that parking that we lost by giving up the Multnomah level center court to new stores. We found that the doctors were much happier because they could stay in their existing quarters, and we're just in the process of completing the leasing of our total medical wing and are looking to expand additional medical and office facilities on our West Mall. We're going into about 10 more months and we'll be completing the center. We plan to have the center completed in August of 1991. We don't plan to have a grand opening as such As you've seen with the Roush project and some of the others, we think that because we've been ongoing and open over a period of time and having new tenants coming on board as early as last week, we think we need an ongoing program over the period of the next 10 months of a series of events. As things happen and we are able to open up different sections of the center, we'll commemorate that by having some special events. Meyer Nordstrom's just had their grand opening for their new store. Meyer and Frank has an gala event scheduled on the 9th of November for the completion of their new store, which is, I think, is an outstanding. There's a great renovation. We'll be looking at the ice rink opening in February. In March, we'll be looking at the opening of the food court. In May and June, we'll be looking at the opportunity to open the new theaters and the new Lamont store on the North Mall. When we're through, we'll be 1,500,000 square feet from the 1,000,001 that we initially opened. 80% of the space that we have available is committed, and we're working on that last 20% very hard at the moment. All but 4 stores within the Lloyd project will be relocated. You can see quite a leapfrog project. All our new tenants are looking at in the next year, we expect at least 1,000 new jobs that will be created. And we will be certainly working with the Northeast employment agencies to see that those jobs come from the area, because it's great with people that can come and walk so close to the retail businesses that can get that kind of support. We expect that the convention center will generate probably an additional 15% business over and what the center itself would generate. We find that every other shopping center that we've had close to a convention center generates an additional 15% business, and that's the information we're passing on to our retail tenants. I think it's going to be the most exciting project that I've worked on in 6 different cities throughout the United States. It's been a real pleasure for me to have an opportunity to come back and be a part of Ralph Lloyd's vision and dream. And the small part I played in it, I'm extremely proud of it. And, thank you.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't the only one here. One thing that wasn't said when I was introduced, I am also a business owner in this area, and part of what we do in our company is consulting. Some time ago, a friend of mine told me that a consultant was a person that took your watch and told you what time it was. So I will try not to do that. When I was asked to share my perspectives on development on the East Side, I had to look back in books and other things that I had read over the years. And the best way I could describe North and Northeast Portland is that it's a tale of 2 communities. The best of times and the worst of times. I'm going to deviate somewhat, even though I think we will conform and be in unison with each other in the end. I want to talk a little bit about the best of times, and I want to talk to you about the worst of times, and then maybe wrap that up by ways that you can participate, as well as others, in closing the gaps that are there. I saw the hands for the people that are from this side of the town, and also obviously those that are from the west side. For those that are from the west side, and maybe some that even live on the east side, we want to talk a little bit about the good things that are going on. So I'm going to give you a tour of North and Northeast Portland and talk about the best of times. And I will also say, on behalf of my other Metro ERC commissioners, welcome to the Oregon Convention Center. We have a building here that costs $91 million. That's outstanding any way you look at it. It's going to contribute economically to this area. It's going to contribute economically to this city, to this region, and to this state. We have Pacific Development with all the things that they are doing in the Pacific Development area. Pat talked about earlier about 70 blocks. For those of you that haven't seen from the freeway, the Marriott Residence Inns that are going on. Larry talked about $150 million or so going into the Lloyd Center. You go to the Coliseum, there is economic development with the Blazers and all the activity. You move around, and we look at Emmanuel Hospital as part of HealthLink. There is tremendous activity. They have had major additions lately. You move further down, there's Swan Island with all the activity, and our entire shipbuilding and repair goes on. You move further around, Kaiser, who has had great additions recently, will increase both in employment as well as economic development for the area. Probably after that, one of the largest employers that we don't often think about and could possibly have the greatest impact on this area, the Port of Portland, as we get around to all the terminals. We continue around north, and we have Columbia Boulevard and the Columbia Corridor with all the transportation and other related businesses. If you haven't been out to G.I. Joe's and all the things that are going on out at Delta Park, all that's economic development. You move further around and you look at the airport and all the additions that have taken place out there, that's further economic development. You move around further to the east, the Columbia South Shore, Pat, and the Portland Development Commission, more economic development that will lead to wealth as well as jobs. We come back in a ways and we look at a hard-fought battle just down the street and Fred Meyer and their Hollywood West store, which is indeed something to behold. We've made a circle, and that's an awful lot of economic development. I chaired Economic Development Advisory Committee for this city over the last year for the mayor and the city council. We are certainly talking about in excess of $1 billion in economic development. It is probably not matched by any smaller community anywhere in the United States. So that's exciting. For me, it's great to see that going on. I'm an optimist about where things can go, but I also like to be a realist, and I temper all of that economic development with what I consider the worst of times. The worst of times are that in this area we have unemployment in North and Northeast Portland as high as anywhere in the state of Oregon. We have young people who are now young adults who've never worked. That's a blessing and a curse. It's a curse that they're not working. It's a blessing because that's a potential for employment. But that's still part of what I consider to be the worst of times. We have an area where I'm sure you've read the papers just recently where people cannot get a loan for a mortgage at $15,000, yet you can get a loan for a car at $25,000. There's a lot of work to be done there. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. I think there are solutions to all those things. Small businesses in the area need to have access to capital. All of us know, I think Pat would agree with me, that even all the work that the best of our states do, if you bring in 3 to 5 new major corporations into a state a year, you're fortunate. Most of the development, and certainly in this state, has been homegrown. We need to spend a little time on business development that has not occurred in inner North and Northeast Portland. I'll talk about that in just a little bit. There's work to be done there to move from the worst of times to the best of times. In inner North and Northeast Portland, we have too many households that are headed by single parents. We have to redefine what constitutes a family. We have to do those things that are necessary so that single parent head of households, most often females, can go into the workforce. That's the worst of times. African American businesses were fewer in 1989 than 1959 in inner North and Northeast Portland. In my mind, that's unacceptable. That's the worst of times. Having said that, I can then smile and say, there are some things that I think are going on that I think we all should embrace and move forward on. Let me talk to you about some of the things that are going on that might alleviate all of those. We now have at the Urban League a new executive director, Dr. Daryl Takufu. My firm was fortunate enough to do the pro bono work, to do the nationwide search. We are certainly pleased to have him on board. It's a necessary organization to deal with the social services. I think he has the credentials to do the things that need to be done. It's good to have him on board. The Northeast Economic Development Task Force, which is comprised of a great number of organizations, all dedicated to revitalizing North and Northeast Portland, put out an unprecedented document last year that I think has been the centerpiece for economic development in North and Northeast Portland. The Northeast Workforce Center and Skills Center that's combined with the PDC, Portland Community College, are moving forward to make sure that life skills, job skills are being developed for individuals that reside in the area. That's part of the solutions that are being provided. The North-Northeast Community Development Corporation, working on housing. You probably know about the $15 million from HUD that's being combined with other sources so that housing is made available. They're working toward a solution. I want to talk a little bit about the lending institutions. The lending institutions are beginning to work toward solutions. The organization that I represent has been cooperatively with banks in this area, been able to put together a thus far $3 million minority capital loan fund to work with minority businesses. That's very positive. That's a step in the right direction. Certainly from the lending community, Ed DeWall from Security Pacific Bank, who has chaired a committee with my organization, has led the fight to pull the lending community into making resources available for not only the minority business community, but also the small business community. We've even gone so far as to move way beyond the bounds of Northeast Portland to even work with Pendleton on a model that we developed in Northeast Portland. That's positive because it's talking about working together as Oregonians. The Northeast Business Boosters, longtime organization that I'm privileged to have served as its president for 3 years in the 1980s, working to make sure that issues that need to be brought to the front are being done. My organization, the Oregon Association of Minority Entrepreneurs, has a single focus. Our focus is very simply to promote entrepreneurship and economic development for ethnic minorities in this state. So we have been uniform and unifocused in how we approach things. There are many other organizations that are working, and I will leave with those few. I think the thing that's encouraging is that we now have what I believe to be a spirit of cooperation occurring, which means that we're getting to where we need to be to solve some of the problems. I know that it's probably better for you to ask some questions than for me to give you a lecture, so I'm near the end of my presentation. I will say, however, that what I think would be extremely helpful for me is, and I'm sure for the folks that are residents of this area, is that if you would take your resources and your connection and your abilities and look at some of the organizations that are working very hard to make a change and support them in getting the things done, we will be a long way toward getting this area to the best of times and away from the worst of times. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Pamela Lesh has the privilege of the first question, and we're getting our microphone set up. Okay, Pamela?
Mary, I'm going to pose a hypothetical. Let's imagine it's a Saturday shortly before Christmas, so it's a heavy shopping day, and there's something scheduled both here at the Convention Center and something at the Coliseum. what traffic problems have people anticipated might happen, and are there any plans to work towards ways to alleviate traffic that can get bunched up in this area?
What's that TV show, will the real so-and-so please stand up? Well, everyone will come on light rail. I'm not an expert at all of the aspects of the transportation. We have Chris Kopka from my staff and many others here who've been involved in the planning of the area are. I believe that the area is planned with respect to the rail stops, the redesign of Multnomah Hassalo, the placement of parking, the timing and programming and scheduling of events in such a manner that the traffic impacts will be minimized. I do think, again, that a great deal in the long run depends upon maximum use of the rail and mass transit, not only in this immediate area, but in the whole central city.
Pat was accurate. We have not, as a commission, worked out exactly all the solutions, but one of the solutions certainly will be to maximize the use of light rail. The possibility certainly with downtown parking in other places, and taking light rail to get to the facilities.
Yeah, I think there's one other answer too, is we've worked very hard working on trying to develop a ring road throughout the area so that the traffic can circulate through it off of the Highway 84 and I-5, and that they get on the ring road to get through and around the area. And that looks like that's progressing very well.
Eric Fishman has the privilege of the second question.
Hi, I'm a City Club member and member of the Arts and Culture Committee. And one thing that I was curious about is it seems one of the things that's been successful in the southwest part of downtown and the northwest part of downtown is there's a lot of art on the street, big public art projects. And I know that a lot of that's publicly funded, and I walk around quite frequently in this area, and there's not as much. In fact, there's not very much at all, but this is also public area, and I'm wondering, is that a part of the plan?
Yes.
There's a great deal of
Eric.
public art in this building. If you walk around, it's amazing the amount of art in here and how attractively it's been installed, as well as in the exterior. And I know the city policy of requiring a certain percentage for art, I think it's 1 1/3% now on public projects, will be followed in this area. We're still early in doing a lot of the public projects that'll be done over a number of years, but you will see public art grow in this area.
Yes, Lloyd Center is participating in that program, and we have, I believe, 5 artists commissioning works for us at this point.
And we've also set a committee for the commission to determine how we as a commission accept art, because we've been offered art, and we have to make some decision on how to accept. If we accept one thing, do we accept something else, and how to distinguish between one and the other? So we are working on that, and we anticipate there will be lots of art.
Vivian.
Vivian Solomon, City Club member. What regularity of bookings does the convention center require before it financially breaks even? And until that time, how much is this center costing taxpayers?
Sam, you want to answer that, or you want me to?
You may want to, because
I'll take a first stab at it.
We don't have it.
I was involved, along with a lot of my staff and others, in helping to design and set up the structure for the financial structure of the convention center and the bond issue. As I mentioned in my remarks, the amount of the number of conventions and the period of time in which it was projected, and which it was the basis on which it was sold to the voters, is being exceeded already in the range of 25 to 50%. But secondly, the way it was designed, it's really the hotel motel tax that takes care of the operation of the convention center. And based on the numbers that I've seen at that time and from what I'm aware of now, there'll be no situation that I'm aware of where it will be an additional draw on the taxpayers at all.
That was accurate.
Ray.
I'm Ray Polani, a member of the City Club.
Good afternoon.
Looking at our program, it says here that we are in the heart of development of Portland East Side, And a little ways down, it says, what barriers remain? And it seems to me that the East Bank Freeway not only remains, it's actually been made bigger. How about that?
That's a good one.
Mary?
That's a good one.
Well, as maybe all of you are aware, the East Bank Freeway, this is the freeway that comes from the Markham Bridge and heads north right through the heart of the Central East Side. There's been controversy for the last couple of years on designs, proposals to make additions, changes, etc. Mr. Polani and others, as well as myself and many, many others, have been involved in a very public, open, democratic process that was held in the last year to year and a half. The intention was to try to find a ideal, affordable solution to dealing with the issue of that elevated freeway right on the East Bank riverfront. Let me say, first of all, without equivocation, there was uniform consensus by all parties, no matter what their position was, that it might have been better had it been designed differently in the first place. However, we have what we have, and there are improvements to provide better access to the east side and safety improvements that are needed on those curves as you come off of the bridge that need to be undertaken. The process was followed, and there was a decision made that I believe was very democratic that essentially leaves it with some movement, but leaves it somewhat in the same position. It's not satisfied all. It's certainly not satisfied myself and others, but in this day of a federal deficit, major light rail projects throughout the region, I think the consensus finally was we have to head towards what we can afford as a community and a region. And while it may not be the ideal situation, it was reached in a very open democratic process, and I believe the projects are proceeding.
Marilyn McDonald, City Club member. I applaud the efforts that have been made on the east side, all the development. I think it's encouraging for those of us who have lived on the west side all of our lives, or all of our time in Portland, to see things happening. And thank you for the distinguished panel's contribution to enlightening some of us west side people. There's been a perception that it's not as safe on the east side as on the west side. I don't know if this perception has been addressed or whether the realities or the actualities have been addressed in your planning process, but what reassurances do you have for those who may perceive the east side as not as a desirable or a safe place to visit, to live, or to come to the events?
Let me just say that perceptions probably will remain perceptions until they become reality. So from that, I mean, I don't know that you can change perceptions by simply telling you that's going to be any better. I think the perceptions will ultimately change as people experience the east side. They are starting to come over. I think that education, employment, all those other kinds of things that you have to attend to, and certainly have been, this convention center and the other economic development things that I talked about, are part of changing. Generally, an area is not as safe when people don't have a lot of other things to do. When people are working and doing all the things that people have to do at work, you don't have all that time to do things not constructive. So we are growing economically. I think is more perception than reality. That, I think, however, will change as people come to the area.
I'm Dr. Larry Griffith, City Club member. A reference was made a few moments ago regarding the accessibility of this location in respect to the traffic problems that it may incur. I would just like to state that as I have listened to these speakers, and particularly the gentleman with the Lloyd Corporation, or Myron Franks rather, I couldn't help but feel that he is beginning to see the results of a large dream that occurred almost 50 years ago in Ralph Lloyd's mind. And that dream has taken quite some time to come to full bloom, but it has been. over the years. Over the last 30 years, a great deal of it has. And now since the light rail has come in, it has enhanced it. And when I see what has happened here, I think the grapes look fine. The fruits of our endeavors are beginning to show. As far as further fruits of our endeavors are concerned, I'd like to remind you all that the traffic improvements need to be looked at. The transportation of people is important, and I would like to remind you that further fruits of our endeavors are going to be on the ballot coming up for the expansion of MAX and light rail in this region. When we get that expansion, which this region badly needs, then this little track out here will be in fact connected in all 4 directions. So there really is no reason why people who live in Vancouver, Washington wouldn't be able to find easy access to the convention center, why people who live in Beaverton and Hillsborough or in that area out there couldn't do the same thing, and people who come from Milwaukee couldn't do the same thing. I want to remind you that the fruit is still growing, and we hope you'll make it happen.
Thank you. Don.
Sterling, a member. Speaking of the fruits, has there been any thought of extending Fairless Square into the convention center area in order to further tie together the downtown or the 2 sides of the river and their tourist facilities?
Yeah, I'd be glad to answer that. I think I'm also on the board of the Vintage Trolley. Because of the Vintage Trolley coming on board next September, we feel that that is very important, because we think that the Vintage Trolley has to work very closely with light rail. And as a car comes along, they need to have the opportunity to be on doing that, to get on one car rather than have to wait for the next train or something of that nature. We're also working very closely with the Central City Trolley program. And the idea is that all those would be all interconnected for the same fares or free fares in the area. We hope that certainly the businesses on the line would help to support the operation of those cars. So yes, we're working hard on that and hope to have that in place next year.
Yes. Eileen Kao, City Club member. I graduated from Grant High School a number of years ago and recently attended part of my class reunion at Grant, and I am appalled at the way the school looks. However, I think with economic development, this will probably be improved. Do you plan to do, as was previously done, a continuation of renovation of present structures, or are you going to come in and just destroy everything like was done in Southwest Portland in the 50s and do a total urban renewal?
The plan for the convention center area really attempts to maximize private development that is planned, that can be assisted by public improvements and other kinds of activities. There is no plan, and has not been any plan, to undertake any massive acquisition and clearance of property. I don't know. I can add, we have no plans to upgrade Grant High School. I wish we my son goes to school there, and I wish we could upgrade it, but that's a bit beyond our territory. But no, we have no such plans.
Last question, Ned.
Ned Look, City Club member. Could you tell us a little about the background and the status of the convention hotel, which I understand approximately anticipated 800 rooms, and the subsidy and rumors that we hear that the Red Lion is adding 300 rooms without a subsidy, and can you enlarge on that?
Thank you, Ned. There's approximately 4 questions there, and let me deal with them. The Red Lion issue first is not a rumor. There's in fact a very specific public agreement that we have, that the community has, that provides for the Red Lion, and hopefully they will go ahead and add 275 units, hotel units to their hotel. That those additional units would greatly assist by providing additional rooms in this area for the convention center. Secondly, the headquarters hotel which is designed to be, unlike the Red Lion, a 700 to 800 room hotel with 40 to 50,000 square feet of ballroom and meeting room space with related parking, which is a very specialized hotel that really complements the convention center, has been a very high priority throughout the public process. It's a priority of the commission. It's a priority of all of the agencies and organizations involved in marketing and operating the convention center. And it's been adopted and approved by the City Council. We have the site that's been picked is immediately north of this building. That site is currently principally privately owned by one individual. And we have been discussing and negotiating with that individual and his associates for the last several weeks a method whereby hopefully we would be able to lease long-term that property with lots of terms and conditions tied to it to be able to then market that site while still being privately owned for a headquarters hotel. We're in those discussions, and those discussions will continue. It is a very high priority for the whole community, and we hope we're able to go ahead with it. With respect to, I'm not dodging your question, Ed, with respect to the issue of public investment, we call it. Every convention center hotel of the type that I just described in the country that we're aware of has taken some kind or other of public investment. Our wish, and the wish of the community as a result of this process we've gone through, is to have an open process, a competitive process, so that we have more than one developer operator interested in this opportunity. And through the process of competition and negotiation to hopefully and result in no public investment, but should there have to be public investment to get it underway, to do it in a form of a loan or other kind of assistance, but through competition to keep that investment as low as possible in order to achieve the goal.
Very much.
I have one brief announcement. David McCarthy has left his credit card at the check-in table.
Well,
please check
let's
with the staff. Please join me in thanking our speakers for a wonderful program today.